And now, for a moment of clarity.
From my perspective, Senator, the three nominees up this week are wholly unqualified. We wouldn't get the hex at that. That's just a brain fart on its own. But the reality that we have now in front of us is someone who is a threat to our national security, in Tulsi Gabbard, someone who's a threat to our homeland security in Patel, and someone who's a threat to our health in RFK Jr. There's no question at this point that if I were a senator, I would ask them. I'd do one thing. I'd block every last one of them. I would not let in. I would tell. I mean, the White House is saying, "Oh, you Republicans, y'all don't get to advise and consent, advise and adjust." That advise and consent basically is, you do what we tell you to do. That's not your problem. You're in the minority, and with a very thin majority on the other side. What are Democrats prepared to do to make the point that these three individuals is a line that they are drawing on behalf of the country, that this administration is going to have to come back to the table with somebody else? Because, I mean, you already saw what your boy from West Virginia did to Democrats for 18 months. I don't understand why you can't do the same to Republicans.
It's called flooding the zone. That's what it is called. There's a reason that it is impossible to fit in a 2-hour show, right? It is all Michael by design. Do so much, so fast that we have no possible ability to cover it all.
And the fact is, I think folks out there are, you hear a lot of, well, did people vote for this? Okay, arguably the answer is no, and at the same time, yes. No, in the sense that none of this was discussed outside of some of the broader immigration issues.
And the January 6th pardons.
And the January 6th pardons. But some of the other things that we're now seeing play out was never, the Paris Climate Accords, Donald Trump never talked about that and as something that was going to be, first day. But at the same time, I think we're still stuck with a very important question. My buddy, Mickey Edwards, who's a former member of Congress, been involved with a number of conversations with him, with a group of folks. And he asked the question I think is very important. He said, we continue to ask why voters chose to elect Trump when, in his opinion, we should be asking why they were so determined to get rid of the incumbent administration and the party that he represented. Because I think that a lot of this is an open door for Trump, which he helped open by sowing the sort of discontent towards the Biden policies. The economy sucks when the economy was growing. Inflation was high when inflation was low. The price of eggs when the price of eggs was coming down. And then he admits, oh, well, I can't do anything about the price of eggs.
Domestic oil production at an all-time high.
Exactly. So
you know what? I think they penalized the media apparatus penalized President Biden for not doing more interviews, not giving them more access. And I say that because he would not talk to them. And to be clear, I think the president should have did more interviews. But because he was not, very engaged and involved with the media apparatus, they're like, well, it's not our job to do the White House's job for them. I heard that from so many reporters. It's not our job to do the job. Well, just cover what's happening. You would think that not a deportation flight, a deportation flight has happened in the Biden administration, when the Biden administration was actually sending more people back than Trump had.
So but again, I think the important narrative here, real quick before we go, is how that was leveled up to voters. Mm-hmm. So voters' perception of what was happening and going on around them and the reality were disconnected. And in that gap is where Trump settled in. And to Alicia's point, flooded the zone. And he continues to flood the zone until we get our collective acts together and say, no. Don't expect it from Republicans in the Senate. It's not happening. Damn sure it's not going to happen in the House. So that's going to require the rest of us to decide what of all of this flooding of the zone we find acceptable, from January 6 pardons to what we see on DE&I. So it's now rests in our hands because I'm not relying on the media. That's for sure.
Well, Michael, we
and
are
the press.
Media now.
Well,
We are the media.
I'm a politician who's in the media, but I'm not of the media.
Michael Steele said he is having an existential crisis in his identity right now.
Right now.
And elections have consequences, but Michael, we're also hearing that they are drilling down in a lot of these departments to a very low level of moving people out. They have said, the president-elect, when he was first running, has talked about this, and it was certainly in what, they were being given by these conservative think tanks to get rid of even civil service protections and create a new category which could permit them to put more political people in.
Yeah, all of that was laid out in this document. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it, or maybe they haven't heard of it. Project 2025. I think it was. I think all of this was spelled out in that. I'm not sure if the American people are aware of it, or the media, or in politics. But yeah, there's the playbook right there. The other part of this, which is rather amusing, is that the IGs, a good number of the IGs, the 18 that were fired or illegally removed, were appointed by Trump during his last administration. So these are IGs, IGs that he's not unfamiliar with. His team is not unfamiliar with, but somehow I guess they've become corrupted because they served in their independent capacity in the last 4 years. During the Biden administration. The politics of this is rife. This is not about good government, so let's disabuse ourselves of that. Lindsey Graham proved that with his sort of flippant it was no big deal, it's just a technicality. The law is just a technicality, America. It is not to be followed. It is to be experienced however Donald Trump decides to experience it. So, yes, the idea is to drill down as far as they can within the government to pull out people who are longtime public servants, who've been there for many administrations, Republican and Democrat, who are now disposable, and replace them with people who, and here's how Donald Trump operates, who, if Donald Trump wanted to pick up the phone and call the undersecretary of the assistant undersecretary of the undersecretary, right, that far down the chain, he could do that, and the person would do what he tells him to do. That's the level of commitment they're looking for from these new public servants.
Catch Michael Steele on The Weekend, Saturdays and Sundays, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. on MSNBC.